The transformation actually shows us that how our graph is going to move up, down, right, or left in the graphical form. So here we have an equation which is written here. Y equals a times x plus h whole square minus k. Now this square is actually representing that it's a quadratic function. And from quadratic function, we always know that it's going to be a parabola. And by parabola, I mean that it will going to look like this or this, and sometime this as well. So its shape is going to look like this. Now here in this blue equation, you can see we have a, x, h, and k. Here, these are the symbols that actually represent something. Like this k is representing change in y, while this h represents change in x, and this a represents the stretch and compression. Now, in order to solve our graphical form in a transformation form, we should know what actually the vertical shift and what actually is the horizontal shift. Now, in order to understand that, first of all, see, we have some rules in vertical shift. So vertical shift means that we have to shift our graph vertically, either up or down. I can't shift my graph right, left, or any other way rather than up and down because I am bound to this condition. So in vertical shift, my graph is going to go up or down. Now, think about a situation in which my graph can go up or down. So the main thing is under which conditions I will be able to move my graph up or down. So for example, you can see that its vertical shift is actually change in y, or I can say that it will gonna be change in y-axis as well. So it will gonna look like this, that my change would be y-axis. If my k value is positive, then my graph will go up. But if my k value is negative, then my graph will go down. Now let's see how. I have a graph here. Y equals x squared. It's a parabola. I'm going to write it because it's a positive and I don't need to do any change in it. I'm going to draw it as it is, like this. This is my parabolic equation in which y is equal to x squared. In this equation, my k value is positive and it doesn't add up anything, so I'm going to stay here. But if my k value is like this, y equals x squared plus 2. Now, the square is only on x, so that means it's a parabolic equation. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write it like this, 1, 2, 1, 2 here. So first of all, my equation was parabolic equation was like this, the normal equation. But then because you can see the 2 here, that is positive 2. And positive 2 means that it's a change in y-axis and it is going to go upward. So if I move if I shift this graph 2 points up, it will become like this, the red one, you can see. And for instance, if I have this graph, or you can see I have the equation, but this time instead of positive 2, we just wrote it down, negative 2. Then how to draw it? I'm going to shift this graph 2 points down, like this. So this is how my vertical shift gonna work. Now let's come talk about the horizontal shift. For the horizontal shift, we always see what actually with x. It's actually the change in x-axis. So we're going to talk about this thing, x plus h whole square thing. We have the value inside the bracket. That means we have to change in x-axis. And whatever the value it is, we change according to that value. Now let's see. It has also a condition. Whenever the value with x, let's suppose here is h. Whenever my h is positive, then my graph will go left. But in case of h is negative, my graph will go right. So keep this thing in your mind that x are weird. So x's are weird. So they're going to go the opposite way. But in vertical shift, the y goes with the flow, that if it's positive, then it will go up. If it's negative, then it will go down. But in this case of horizontal shift, if it's positive, that means it's going to left side. And if it's negative, then that means it's going to right side. Now let's see how we have a graph and we're going to draw it as well. For example, my question says that y is equals to x plus 2 whole square. Now you can see the difference here. The square is on the bracket and 2 is inside that bracket. That is indicating me that it's a horizontal shift. But if my 2 is outside, then it will become a vertical shift like in this condition. So whenever I have a value which is inside bracket and it's adding or subtracting with x, it means it's a horizontal shift. And by horizontal shift, I means the change in x-axis. Now, because it's a quadratic equation, if I normally draw a quadratic equation, it will gonna look like this. And it's representing y is equal to x square. But here, in our case, it's y equals to x plus 2 whole square. Now, plus 2 means that's 2 points to the left because it's a positive thing. So my graph was first standing in the middle, then it will gonna move left 2 points, 1, 2 here. So my graph will gonna look like this. It will gonna shift here. And for instance, if my same question has the value, but instead of positive, it has negative sign inside it. And because the negative sign is inside the bracket, I have to move towards the right. Then my graph will gonna move towards the right. 1, 2 from the region. So my graph will gonna look like this. Let me draw it clearly at point 2, like this. So it's the graph of this one. So you can see how positive and negative thing will gonna impact on the changes in the shapes or changing in the shifts of the vertical and horizontal shift. So just keep this thing in your mind that whenever I'm talking about horizontal shift, it's about change in x-axis. And for vertical, it means it's change in y-axis. Now, sometimes students got confused and they don't know either it's a horizontal shift or a vertical shift. So to avoid this confusion, I'm writing a question here. Let's suppose it is y equals x minus 6 whole square. Now think about yourself and tell me, is it a horizontal shift or a vertical shift? Just pause this video and think about yourself. If you have thought about it, then what will you learn from here? That either it's a horizontal or a vertical shift. If you are saying that it's a horizontal shift, then yes, it is a horizontal shift. Now, how it's a horizontal shift? Because the value is inside the bracket. That makes it in the change in x-axis because it's representing the h. But if I wrote the question y equals x square and minus 6 is outside the bracket, there is no square on 6, then that means it's a vertical shift because 6 is independent. It's not influenced by the x. It's representing the k value. So keep this thing in your mind and solve the questions according to these rules.